I'm Sarah Zaslaw. This is GPV. Natalie Stutzman, welcome.
Thank you, Sarah.
It's great to see you again. I want to ask about a lot of upcoming things, but also some of your news since we last spoke. So you've been with the Atlanta Symphony for 4 years now, and your contract was just renewed for another 3, I think till 2029. Congratulations. So you're at sort of roughly the midpoint of that. How has your relationship with the orchestra evolved, and what does that mean about how you're looking forward to the upcoming years?
Well, it's a very special relation when you are music director with an orchestra because it's a long-term relation, and I often compare it to a family life because you work with the same group of people, and of course, the more often you see them, the more you know them, and you start to know them more individually, it's a family life with the ups and the downs and the difficult times and the easy times and the joy. And we share everything together during the time we work together. And I love the fact to have this long-term relationship because I think it's the best way to create something artistically. Only when you can challenge people on a regular basis, you can really get to build up the orchestra quality, the sound, the expressivity of it. And it's, of course, it's not the easiest work, but I think it's the more rewarding. And I think also for the musicians, it's very important for them to have a guide, someone who gives a vision, a clear direction, so they know where they go and they know which ambition they should have. And I hope it's a motivation for their daily life to practice and to have the will to get better and better for, sharing the beauty of music.
So that horizon's been extended out. You also have a recording relationship with them. You are a Warner Classics Erato recording artist. Your first release with the Atlanta Symphony was music of Dvorak. And now this summer, in late July, you've got a Bruckner album coming out. How do you choose which one piece or one program of all the music you do is worth recording?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Actually, we are in a situation where we record live, and we organized this Bruckner Festival for the celebration of the birthday of Bruckner in 2024. And we performed several symphonies of Bruckner, but something happened during the week. We performed the 4th symphony, and it was one of those, really good, miraculous week where everything goes well, every player is in top shape. And when I listened to the concert results, I thought that's something I would like to suggest to Warner, and they agreed with me. And so I'm extremely delighted to be able to say that we are going to release a second disc on Warner, which is, as you know, very rare for any American orchestra to have a contract with possibility to have a recording available in a major company today. And that means this recording will be available worldwide, and it puts Atlanta in the lights.
This year, news also broke that you have an additional orchestra under your umbrella. You will be the artistic and musical director of the Monte Carlo Philharmonic as of September 2026. Fantastic. We think of Monte Carlo as this ritzy, scenic city, sort of a playground for the rich within tiny Monaco, right next to the French, on the French Riviera, right next to France, right? So what is that orchestra like in this unusual location, and what's your relationship like there?
And next to Italy also. It's very,
right
very
between
close.
France and Italy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a place full of glamour, and of course, Grace Kelly, one of yours, is one of the legend of Monte Carlo. But it's a very interesting place because, as you said, it's tiny geography. But of course, it has a prestigious reputation, and it attracts very good musicians. And one of the things to know is that so the husband of Grace Kelly, the Prince Rainier, who was the one who had passion for classical music, and he said, "I want to have in this place a trilogy of arts, the best ballet in the world, the best opera house, and the best orchestra." And for that, he gave the instruction to have 100 full full-time permanent musicians. So it's an extremely healthy situation for a music director to have those possibilities. And of course, it's an orchestra which has a high level, which is also an opera orchestra, which makes the difference. Is that they're also playing lots of opera repertoire. And it's an orchestra which has lots of touring possibilities in Europe. So it's a great, and of course it's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah, lucky you. I remember you saying that you're a snorkeler. How's the coast around there for snorkeling?
Just perfect.
Yeah?
Just ideal. Absolutely. I love that, and the coast is magnificent. Yeah.
Mm. You'll be leading this orchestra in your native language of French. In a recent interview with a French radio program, you said that you're so used to rehearsing in English and German now that it takes you a minute to retrieve some of the French words for basic things like up bow, down bow or something. Is that it?
My God, you know everything. Bravo. That's amazing. Yes, indeed. It's, it's an orchestra I have been conducting since 10 years now, regularly. I did 2 opera productions with them, and I did a couple of symphonic weeks. And each time I was myself just surprised that there were French words which I was missing during my rehearsal time, because it made me realize that I've been very, very little invited in French-speaking orchestras, actually. But I hope it will come back quickly.
I'm sure. I guess the funding situation in Monte Carlo is unique, but I wanted to ask a little bit about, in general, the difference between American and European orchestras. Traditionally, there was much more state funding for the arts in Europe. Is that still the case, and how does it affect what your responsibilities are as music director?
Well, it affects a lot all the perspective of the work. It is still in Europe an absolutely normal thing for the state to give all the money for arts, and it is one of the beautiful thing in Europe is that culture is essential. So the state gives a lot of money to music, but also theaters, ballet, exhibitions, for arts in general. And actually, Monte Carlo has the same system. It's the government who pays for it, and so of course it gives you a liberty in the programmation, because you don't depend on how many tickets you will sell. You don't rely so much on donors, because the state is there for that. However, there are places where it starts to be also important to have some donors also, because the subventions, the economic crisis and everything has always been a bit difficult. So there is less money than it was in the past. So we get inspired in Europe by the American system. And in America, everything is about being able to be, with the budget aligned, and to always have a control on how much you spend and how much you earn. And we depend so much on the generosity of our donors. And we are very grateful to have so many of them who are very generous, because there is a culture of generosity in very rich people in this country, which is unique as well. Thanks God, because otherwise there would be no art. But sometimes we wish that the leaders of the country would understand that without arts, there is no civilization.
Let's look at the season ahead, 26-27. The Atlanta Symphony's 2026-2027 season zooms in a lot on 19th century German composer Johannes Brahms. You've got a series called Brahms Revealed. Brahms is not obscure, so what are you hoping to reveal?
Well, I didn't choose the title.
Okay.
I would have probably choose the Ingrid Bergman movie, Do You Love Brahms?
Oh.
But it's an essential part of the ground for a symphonic orchestra, and I think it's a composer which audience, of course, know, but I have the feeling that playing a full cycle of his music will give a different perspective to people about the diversity of his music, because sometimes people see Brahms in one side. It's like the pictures of Brahms. You always see Brahms old with this big barb and this
beard.
But when you see pictures of Brahms when he was 20, he was so handsome, man, so beautiful blue eyes, and so, you know, there is a kind of a picture, a bit, I would say, old-fashioned somehow. And it's important, I think, to sometimes just do a cycle so that people can understand the full history of a composer, which is a major one.
You'll be doing all 4 symphonies, the concertos, violin, piano, piano, double, and the German Requiem, right, with the chorus, covering a lot of ground there. But the idea is to not do them all in one block, but to split them up and pair them with other works that say something about that. Do you want to speak to any of those examples? Like Brahms and Wagner, they were famous rivals, but you've put them on some programs together.
Yeah, on purpose. I love the idea to put 2 people who hate each other, but at the end of the day, you can see that they are 2 genius. And the funny thing is that you hear in Brahms sometimes the influence of Wagner and the reciprocal. So it's very interesting. And there are also some overtures that we program, like one of our donor was telling me the other day, thank you for programming the academic overture of Brahms, which is only played for students things, and this is a masterpiece and incredibly enjoyable to listen, which is rarely paired in let's say a regular serious program. And this is a kind of idea we like to develop with Gaëtan Ledivelec, who is my artistic director. I don't know how you say here, but we build up the programs together, and we like to surprise also people, or just to pair Bach with Brahms, because Brahms was an absolute lover of Bach, and he was famous to study all the manuscript of Bach music all his life. And again, if you don't know Bach, you don't understand how Brahms has written his music, because he writes the bass of the house based on the same bass line as Bach. So these kind of things, we have programs where we combine Bach and Brahms, also.
When you conduct the ASO chorus, they've been prepared by Norman Mackenzie, director of choruses, for possibly weeks in advance, right? And then you come in. How does it get handed over from him to you?
Well, Norman does a wonderful work, because he knows how to prepare. I mean, you have to imagine that. So yesterday night you are on stage 150 singers, and most of them, they are lawyers or whatever. They have other professions, and they come like volunteers. And some of them have a big knowledge of music, some have a little knowledge. So he is able to prepare them to be absolutely solid musically. But he's also preparing them to be like how would you say, a white canvas, so that
blank canvas.
Yes, exactly. Which means when I arrive, they are ready for all my input, and immediately from the first rehearsal I have with them, I can print exactly what I want and the tempi I want, the colors I want, and they are very, very flexible, because they are so secure musically, rhythmically, that I can shape everything very quickly. And I must say also, probably as an ex-singer, I have a very special relationship with them, and I can just sometimes beat with one finger, and I have 150 people in that finger. It's just like, it's quite magic, the relation we have.
Beautiful. In 2026, 2027, the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra is going to have an artist in residence. This is not something I remember happening recently. Is this the first time?
I think.
Yeah, your idea?
Yes.
And did you think, I want an artist in residence, who shall it be?
No.
Or was there someone you liked and you created the position for her?
Exactly. I always like to base the idea on, would you say coup de foudre? Can we say that? When your heart is, you have, this person is amazing, We call it like in love, coup de foudre. You say when you fall in love instinctively with someone. So there's the same expression in French. And so we invited Anna Gagnon-Chenet during the season to play the Tchaikovsky piano concerto. And I think everyone was just blown away about Anna's playing. I think she is one of the greatest pianists ever in our times. And I think she doesn't have enough light on her on promo, because she's not someone who dress particularly special. She doesn't come with shiny glasses and dresses, and she just cares about the music. And Anna has an incredible technique and an incredible piano knowledge. But what I love with Anna is that everything is to serve the music. She's not someone who show off or whatever. She's just a pure musician. And this is very, very rare. And so then the idea came to say, we loved so much working together. Why don't we invite her in residence? Because then she can also approach different repertoire with us. And for the audience, it gives also a continuity in the season to know better one artist. So I think every time we would like a specific artist to be more often with us, we can do this kind of residence, which is quite a popular thing in Europe nowadays, but very rare here.
Nice. So she'll be doing one of the two Brahms concertos and Schumann and
Rachmaninoff, Paganini. Exactly.
Okay, great.
She will end the season with us.
Yeah. So you're in Atlanta for about 10 programs each year. Meanwhile, you're also guest conducting around Europe and doing high-profile operas, and now you've got another orchestra in Monte Carlo. How do you divide your time between all these things and home? You must live somewhere.
Sometimes I often wake up and I don't know where I am because I'm so rarely at home, and it's the hardest part of my life. Of course, like everyone, I miss it. I miss my family. I miss to be home, and it's very challenging. But it's a part of the passion for music and the part of success. And I have been working so hard to be where I am today that it would be terrible to complain about that. But it's also a little bit, I was listening to a tennisman interview the other day because it's Roland Garros competition at the moment, the tennis in Paris, so famous, fantastic competition. And they were talking about the scheduling, and that nowadays you have many players, they have problems with their body because they are playing so much and they have to play so much. And in the music world, it has become a little bit difficult also to balance your life because either you have not enough, either you have too much. But there is no middle, And of course, better to have too much. But my passion for being completely dedicated to music helps me to go on. And nowadays I try to make more choices, of course. Most important for me is Atlanta Symphony Orchestra and Monte Carlo because I have my American family, my European family orchestras. But of course, it's hard to say no when you conduct the Concertgebouw Orchestra, the London Symphony Orchestra, the Dresden Staatskapelle. The 10 best orchestras in Europe invite me, and I'm going next week to Bayreuth. I have the honor to open the festival this year.
The big Wagner Center.
Exactly. How can you say no? That's the main problem.
Huh. And then I'm curious about the stamina involved in all of this. The lifestyle, but also for an individual evening, conducting a 90-minute symphony or a 3-hour, 4-hour opera. How do you stay in shape, or is conducting exercise enough?
It's an enormous physical and mental investment. A night like yesterday is incredibly demanding. So I don't do anything really special because conducting is such a workout, and I have a fantastic therapist here who helps me with the body, and she's also treating the team of the basket players of the Olympics here in America. And she says she comes to my concert and she says, you are an athlete and you have to be taking care like an athlete. So I always have someone who take care for my body just to get in a good shape. I do stretching, I do yoga, to every day to have my body ready to work. I try to sleep enough, and I eat very healthy, and I walk. I do snorkeling in the summertime when I have vacations, which is not often, but it happens, thanks God. And that's how I keep going. But it is true that you cannot be a normal person in terms of stamina. If you do this, you have to be especially energetic, and I am lucky with a genetic for that. But I mean, also the traveling is exhausting. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not so much. I mean, when you rehearse an orchestra, it's so demanding if you give everything to it, and you are absolutely exhausted after 2.5 hours like this, and you need a very special way of keeping going with that.
Mhm.
It's very special, but the traveling is the worst.
How long does it take to wind down after a concert? Are you able to go to sleep for a while?
Terrible. I went to sleep, but I couldn't sleep, so it was what I should have go out
Last night?
Yeah, because actually the adrenaline goes so high that your body cannot go down. So I probably slept at 3 a.m. and I woke up early because my brain was again in the dream of last night concerts and thinking of this passage and this and that. And
Yeah. But then you have to be on the next day. So what's your relationship like with caffeine?
yeah, I got quite a lot of coffee this morning to be able to be with you.
Thank you. And it's 2 p.m. This is not the morning. So just
No.
to be clear.
And the day is not over. We had long meetings before already. And, I have also lots of duties as music director apart from music. So
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Nathalie Stutzmann. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
thank you. For me too.